The Bible, according to Guinness World Records, is one of the best-selling books in the world, selling more than 5 billion copies worldwide. Have you ever wondered how a book like that came to be? Have you ever asked the questions, who wrote the Bible, or why did they write it? Well, I hope to answer those questions briefly in the time that I have today. The first thing I want to cover is exactly what does somebody mean when they say that the Bible is canon. And then secondly, I want to talk about what's in the Bible and why it's in there. And then finally, I want to tell you how it all came together. So what exactly does somebody mean when they say that the Bible is canon? Well, in the Christian community, the word canon usually has around two meanings. Dr. Michael Kruger, president of early Christianity at Reformed Theological Seminary, states that it commonly either means a closed, fixed set of books, or it means the books that God gave to his followers, and in this case, the Christians. You see, the Bible is a book that's made up of about 40 different authors, and on top of that, it's got 66 different pieces of literature. It's split up into two main categories. You have the Old Testament, which are the older books, and you have the New Testament, which are the newer books. Now you might ask the question, how does a Christian tell if those books, or any book at that matter, any piece of literature, was given to them by God? Well, the first question that they would probably ask is, was it written by a prophet? Dr. DeRushi from Southern Baptist Seminary states that it was written by prophets from around 1450 BC all the way until about 400 BC. Now, prophets were known historically as people who communicated with God. They would act as a medium between God and the people. So the people, in this case the Jewish people, would also hold the prophets' writings at the same authority as being messages and instructions from God. Dr. John Battle from Western Reformed Seminary states that the Old Testament was actually already canon and used officially as canon before 400 BC and afterward. And not only that, but it was actually considered an unfinished set of books. See, the theme of the whole Old Testament was that God would eventually send somebody to come, forgive, and save the whole world of its evil and corruption. And they named that somebody Messiah, or the Messiah. But the problem was he hadn't come yet. Not only had he not come, but the Jewish people had been waiting for a long time. Imagine going to the bookstore and picking up your favorite novel. You start reading it, you're all excited as you're going through it, and eventually you get to the last chapter, and it's not there. You'd want to return the book, wouldn't you? Well, they didn't want to return the book, but that's basically the whole idea of what they were going through at the time. They didn't have the ending yet, so they were anticipating it. Now this is where the New Testament, the life of Jesus, and the apostles began. The New Testament authors believed that Jesus was the Messiah. They believed that Jesus was God in human form who came to fulfill the promises that were made in the Old Testament when he was crucified on a wooden cross by the Romans because he claimed to be God. Flavius Josephus, a Jewish historian, takes account of these in Book 18 of his works. So then if the prophets didn't write the New Testament, who did? Well, the apostles wrote the New Testament. The reason Christians hold the authority of the New Testament equal to the Old Testament prophets is because the apostles were disciples and followers of Jesus, and they learned directly from him. And because Christians believed that Jesus was God, therefore they believed that the apostles had equal authority to the prophets as well as their writings. There were a few exceptions. For example, Luke and Mark didn't follow and learn from Jesus. However, they were direct companions to the apostles. So Christians also hold their works at the same authority as the apostles. So then the question raises, when did the books, the New Testament and the Old Testament, come together and officially, were declared as a canon set, combined list of books? Dr. Michael Kruger, who I referenced earlier in the speech, claims that we can track back early Christians as having used the New Testament writings as having already been official and canon since the first century when they were written. However, a man named Marcion around 144 AD believed the books that Christians were using were wrong. So what he did was he trimmed and cut out certain books that he didn't believe were true so that it would better fit his theology and belief. It was because of these events that Christians then decided to make an official list and set of books that would be called the canon of the Bible. And this was finalized at the Third Council of Carthage at around 397 AD. Well, that about sums it up. I've told you generally who wrote the books of the Bible. Well, sort of. Why they wrote them, why Christians consider them to be from God, and finally, when and why they were officially made into a list or set of books. Well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed, and God bless.